Hi everybody! Welcome back to another crafting class with me, Aviva, your art director from the Ed Asner Family Center. Today, it looks like I got a bunch of random stuff in front of me, right? But I'm sure you can tell from the title that we are making recycled paper, homemade paper. We're making our own paper today. Isn't that crazy? I don't see a lot of people doing this anymore, and it's such a fun and easy and simple way to just reuse some of that paper instead of sending it straight to the landfill. You know, let's reduce and reuse. Am I right? So get off in front of your TV and go find all of these scrap papers that you have laying around your house. In all of our offices here at the center, we throw away a lot of paper. So I've got a nice stack and even more in the art room that I am going to be turning into homemade paper today. And so I'm going to be showing you all the steps and all the materials you're going to need to do that, okay? So what you're going to be needing, obviously some scrap pieces of paper, like I just said. So it could have ink on it. It could be, oh, this one has a paper clip on it. So you want to make sure, that leads me to my next subject. You want to make sure all the paper clips are gone, all the staples are gone, any like pieces of tape, because you don't want to be picking through that later. There's a chance there might be some tape on one of these. We'll figure that out later. But make sure everything's off of the paper. And it doesn't even have to be paper. It could be non-styrofoam egg crates, anything paper-based. Paper-based is what we're using today because even if it's thick, we are going to be soaking it in water. And so here's our bucket we're going to be using today. So you're going to need some type of bowl or bucket to soak your paper in. So paper, bowl. We're going to be needing a blender. There's ways online that you can do this without a blender, but it takes a lot of tearing apart with your hands. Or like forks. I've seen people use forks to like tear it apart as well. But hopefully you have a blender at home. Makes it a lot easier. Scissors. Another little bowl. You need two bowls. Big one, small one. And this is optional, but my favorite part of the whole thing. Food coloring. Because if we want a colorful piece of paper instead of just a plain white one, you add a little bit of food coloring, magical paper. But the thing is, when you are mixing all of these different types of inks that are on this already pre-used paper, it does, when it's all mixed together, it makes a grayish kind of color. So I do suggest kind of putting a little bit of pop of color in there. And we'll talk about that later and we'll see what ends up happening. But finally, you're going to also need, today I'm just using a nice big piece of fabric, but at home, if you have a non-terry cloth towel, that means no towel with any of the little bumpy fabric bits, you know, a towel that's nice and smooth, like almost like a sheet, but it's a towel, then that'll be perfect because that towel rough terry cloth material will end up picking up some of our paper when it's all soft and squishy, you know? So let's get into it. We got a lot to do today. So when it comes down to space and where can I do this project, right? Is this gonna be really messy? Messy is a strange word to use when it comes to this because it's really just paper and water. You can, as long as it's a nice clean surface, it's really easy to wash up. But if you have the luxury of having a backyard or just somewhere to be outside, I always suggest going outside to craft. I think it's nice to be out of your regular scenery and to just do something different for a change, especially when you're being crafty. All right, let's do it. So we're going to start with our first step, and our first step is going to require the paper. So let's move all this stuff out of the way and get started, okay? So we're going to start with our paper. And so what you're going to be needing to do is you're going to be taking all of your paper, and this is a lot of paper. You see the stack that I have here? This is going to make a lot of paper. I suggest, I don't have like an exact amount. This is not a precise project. See how much like a stack like this makes you, and you can never have too much paper. Everyone uses paper at some point. So what you're going to be doing is taking your paper and either ripping it and cutting it into little bits. I've got little squares here. I've got my giant teacher cutter here, so it made it a lot easier. But if you're at home and you don't have a big cutter or you don't have scissors, you can just rip it up. That's easier. And it's also very satisfying. Okay, so now that I have my pre-cut paper, I am ready to start doing the next step, which is soaking our paper, okay? So that's when our big bucket comes into play, and you can see I do have some water in here. So you can tell I've already put my paper bits. This will be for my my next batch of paper, but I have my paper in here and it has been soaking for quite a while now. But if you want to just get started on your project, you can soak your paper for a minimum of 5 minutes. So as long as it's been soaking for 5 minutes, you should be fine. You just want to make sure that your paper is nice and soft. See, you should be able, the way that you can tell that it's ready is if you take a piece, obviously when it's dry, it's going to make a nice rip noise, but it should just kind of fall apart once it's been soaking for enough time. So you just leave that be for now. And what we're going to do is start our blending process. So I'm going to just remove my blender from the machine part. And what I'm going to be doing is filling up the blender with just the paper bits first, okay? So I'm going to be taking all of my paper bits and putting them into the blender, just the bits first. Okay, make sure to grab all of it. You don't want to leave any stragglers. Okay, so now that I've got basically all of my bits, I'm going to be pouring this water. And this water, it looks dirty, but it's really just like the ink and all the little colors that were in the paper before. So we are going to be pouring, right now we have this much paper, about half a blender's worth of paper. And then we're going to be filling half of the paper's worth with water. So if that makes sense, we're going to do 2 parts paper, squishy paper, 1 part water. So find that part of your water and fill up the water about halfway. So I don't want to spill this here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my blender over here, hook it up. Alrighty, and just pour in your water. You don't want too much water in. My mixture is all mixed, and I want you to just see what color this is now. So it's not the white that you're expecting. Like I said, all of the ink that kind of get mixes together ends up making like this grayish kind of mush. It's kind of warm now too from the blender. So if squishy things and wet stuff is not really what you like sensory wise, I suggest getting a parent or your grown-up to help you with this part. But what we're going to be doing is taking our mixture and getting our little bowl that we have here, and we are going to be pouring our mix into our tiny bowl. Alrighty, so taking it out of here, just pouring it into here, because then we don't have to like stick our hand into like the blender where all the blades are. Am I right? No one wants to get hurt during a crafting project. All right, so I'm just gonna move this out of the way. And so what we're going to be doing now, paper towels are definitely a necessary part of this project. So, as you can see, there is a bunch of like little water bits still on the side. And when you are usually making paper, like professionally recycled paper, people use this thing called a mold and decal. And a mold and decal is basically like a screen. It's kind of like two frames, two different types of screens, and it helps you to kind of press all that water out and then flip it and then get that perfect smooth piece. But because obviously we are all kind of at home right now, no one can go out and supplies are low right now. You know, no one's really going to want to go out to the store. So we're trying to make projects for you that are easy and accessible. So we're not going to be using a mold and decal today. This is how to make paper without this little screen that we need, okay? So it's so fun to touch. It's so nice and squishy. You just keep it like this, honestly, make it like a Play-Doh. But we are making paper. Stay on track, Aviva. Come on. All right, so we are going to be needing our wax paper now. I hope I mentioned that in the beginning. That might have been something that I breezed over. But we are going to be needing wax paper or parchment paper. I think parchment paper would work just as well. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to be ripping out two large pieces. So two of the same length, just like this. And what we're going to do is lay it flat. Get your other one ready. Should be about the same length. And you're going to put it right in front of you. Okay, you can't see that, but that's okay. Because we're going to be putting it on top. So you can see my little bit of the top one right there. So what we're going to be doing is taking our mixture and placing it on top of the paper. Our main goal is to have it be flat and a nice flat sheet. So what we're going to be doing is piece by piece, trying to squeeze out a little bit of that moisture as we put it down. So squeezing it, doing what the mold and decal would do if we were using one, but just taking a little bit more, squeezing out some of that liquid and placing it onto our wax. Okay, and you're going to leave a little bit left at the end, just in case holes happen. We're going to be using the same mixture as a little bit of a Band-Aid if holes end up happening once we kind of press it out. Okay. So the process of this whole project is going to take about a day. I know usually we've got quick and easy projects for you here today, but this is a little bit of a longer project for a great kind of end result, right? So now that we've got our nice squishy mass here, we've got our extra bits here for our Band-Aid little pieces. So now this would be a really thick piece of paper, am I right? So we're going to take our second sheet of wax paper, putting it over the top, and a lot of people like to use what is it called? A dough roller? A rolling pin. A rolling pin. And usually people use a rolling pin, but I feel like I personally have more control when I use my hands. But if you feel like a little bit more comfortable with a rolling pin, I suggest using a rolling pin. Because I feel like when I use a rolling pin, I end up getting little holes in it. And that's why we saved this little bit of mixture, just in case holes do happen. So you don't want it to be too thick or too thin. Too thin, you get holes. Too thick, and then it's just like, I don't even know. You don't really want a thick piece of paper, especially if you're going to be binding your paper, like stapling the sides or running a nice string through the edges. You don't want it to be too thick. Okay, so I'm just doing a nice smooth rub here. Really just spreading it out. I'm using the flat part of my palm and my fingers. And we're using wax paper today so that when we peel off this top part, it won't really come off with it. Because think about it, if we were using a paper towel, we'd just be using paper on top of paper. And not only would the paper towel rip, but it might just end up being a part of our mixture if it gets too squishy. All right. It's hard to stop doing this part. It's hard to know when to stop because it's so much fun. But see, I went a little bit too far here because you can see when I very, very slowly peel it off, you can see I got a little bit of hole action right there. And especially when it dries too, that's when the holes start to appear as well. So you really want to make sure that you take some of your extra liquid here. Once again, squeeze out some of those excess liquid and just kind of place it over those holes. And it's okay if it's thicker than the rest because we're going to be placing our wax paper on one more time. Okay. Oh, so friends, I realized I did not actually end up putting the food coloring in, but my end result example does show what it looks like when you put food color into the mixture. But if you are thinking about putting food coloring into your paper, you just put it in when you're about to blend your paper. Just before you blend it, put a few drops of food coloring in there. That's the perfect time to do it, right before you blend. So we're gonna just have nice whitish, grayish blue paper today. So I'm placing over my wax paper one more time and just kind of smoothing out this extra little band-aid that we put on here. Our little paper band-aid. He's our little paper baby. Give him a little pat on the back. You're doing a good job, paper baby. All right, looking good. So finally, before we leave our little paper baby out to dry, I'm gonna just do a nice peel. See how slowly I went right there? All right, so now, let me just bring this up here for you. You can see my edge. This is not like, it doesn't look like paper right now. I can totally understand why you're like, Aviva, what the heck are you making right now? It doesn't even look like paper, but I'll show you in the end. You just wait and see. So now I am taking my smooth fabric or my non-terry cloth fabric here, and I'm just going to be laying it over the top of my little paper baby here, okay? My mixture. So I'm taking it. It's a little wet already, but that's okay. And this is just here to absorb the liquid that we have on our guy that we have. So I'm just taking my hands and very lightly pressing out that liquid. So I'm going to be doing this a few times. So I'm going to be very lightly running my hands over it, and you can see the water start to come out. So you're going to want to give this guy almost about a full day to dry, even after we do this, even after we absorb a majority of this water. This just helps the process go a little bit faster. And then to take it off, we go very slow. So we don't want to get any holes in our paper. Okay, and then turn your towel or your sheet and do that again. And you're going to be just placing it over the top and doing the same thing over and over again. Okay, so I'm going to do this a few more times and then we'll come back and I'll show you what it looks like when it's all nice and dry. All right, so now that I have a lot of the majority of my paper absorbed, the water in my paper absorbed, excuse me, you can see that it is a little bit more firm. Yours should be a little bit more firm too. And what we're going to be doing is just leaving this, hopefully, I should have said this in the beginning, you should probably do this project in a place where it won't be disturbed. So if you're outside, leave it outside, walk away from it. If you're doing this on a tabletop, you can very easily have a tray right over here and then just slide it on top and move it somewhere where it could be safe, because paper like this should not be disturbed now. It needs time to take a little nap, dry up, and then we'll see it in the morning and we'll do our cutting, which I'm going to show you now. So I'm going to move this out of the way for now. Okay, dry off my area so I can show you what it looks like when it's all dry. So for my example that I have here that's already dry and cut and ready to go, I did use food coloring. So this is our paper that I made before, and hopefully you can see the color. It might be a little bit muted on camera, but in person it is a very light pink hue, and you can see that it is a little slightly damp still because I made it this morning, but it's been drying all day, and it's a very small piece of paper. But obviously if you make a bunch of sheets, you can make obviously a bigger sheet. And this is great paper for watercolors, for doing any type of like textured work, because you can see it's not a super flat piece of paper. It is recycled, so it will have some lumps and bumps in it, but that's okay. It'll give it character and it'll make it even better. So that is our paper today. I suggest, taking your paper, and if you have like a needle and thread, you can just kind of sew up the edges and make a very nice, beautiful book. It looks very rustic. Maybe it's like for a cowboy, a notebook for a cowboy. But this is going to be it today. Later on in the future, maybe in springtime, I'll show you how to do this exact same project, but make it so you can actually plant this back into the earth, because some people like to put seeds inside of their paper. So instead of just putting your food coloring and your paper into the blender, you also add some wildflower seeds, and you could just pop these babies in the ground, or write a note to someone. Holidays are coming up soon. You can write a letter on these papers, give them to your loved ones, and be like, instead of putting this up on your fridge, put this baby in the floor. Not in the floor, in the ground, in the dirt, and a flower will emerge. So you can always think about me, right? Good present idea. All right, well, that's going to be it for today. I hope you had fun making your own homemade paper. I know it's a little bit wonky, but it was so fun to make. I hope you guys had fun. I'll see you guys very soon, okay? Make sure to catch me on my show on Wednesday. If you're interested in ever drawing a character, we have a character drawing class from 3 o'clock to, usually takes about 15 minutes. Quick class if you're trying to learn how to draw any type of cartoon character. Also, we have class on Sundays for my painting class, and me and Judy Langdon, our music therapist, has a art and music class, which is so fun. All right, see you guys next time. Show me your drawings with your cool recycled paper, okay? See you next time. Bye.